Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to provide our members with a demo of our new RFP platform. And we're lucky enough to have Casey here today from the company that helped us build the platform. And she's the expert, and she's going to take us through what the platform looks like after I create an instance for you when you are ready to RFP. So if we have an RFP built, I can clone an instance that we have. And Casey will take us through that. But if you need an RFP that we don't have built, we can help you with that. But that is a separate training session. So this one is just meant to show you what you do once the RFP is cloned, and then how you go about personalizing it and getting it ready for use for your own purposes. With that, I will kick it over to Casey. Take it away.
All right, perfect. Let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So once you've created that cloned project for the members and you've invited them in as an admin for it, this is what the view of the project is going to look like. So project name goes up at the top. It can always be edited simply by sticking your cursor within the project name. And it will autosave for you. But what I'm going to do is we'll go through what each of the tabs mean and the different functionality that you can do within them. And then feel free to interject with questions and things like that.
Excellent.
So first off, like I mentioned, this will be your view as soon as you log into the project. The first tab at the top is going to be your summary page. So this is like your high level summary of what the project is. And it goes through each of these collapsible fields. So the goals and objectives of the project, current state. So if there's anything that you're doing right now, or if this is going to be like a net new vendor or solution for the organization, that can all go in there. Your desired future state. So, what you're looking to get out of it, what that ideal world looks like as soon as this is implemented. Benefits from that future state. So when we implement this solution, our teams are going to save X amount of time, or we're going to be able to cut this out of our process, or basically what is going to be the benefit to the company of implementing this new tool. If you are looking to replace something, you could put in current systems. If you are looking to add new functionality and you guys are sort of piecemealing things together to get this function down, if you're working from Excel spreadsheets and you want to get into a CRM, or whatever you're using right now to get that function done, you can put in here if there's anything.
So Casey, this would be a good place for, and since we're using the loyalty RFP, this would be a good place for a brand manager, whoever's filling this out, to add like their CDP or their CRM. What other systems internally this particular vendor that they're searching for will have to work with or integrate with or play with, so that they know whether they're compatible or not. Okay.
Yeah. It could be listed in here. And then when we get to the requirements page, I can show you how that can go into a little bit further detail as well.
Okay.
Before I get down to the bottom sections, one thing too with this page is this timeline area. This timeline, it's a waterfall timeline. If you choose to use it, it's an area where you can keep not only like your team in here, organized with deadlines, but also the vendors when you decide to invite them in. So vendors can see this information. So if you have, you want your requirements to be ranked by a certain date, if you want vendors to be invited in by a certain date, their responses, demos, vendor selection, you can add them each as an event on here and then check them off as they start to happen. Within each of these sections now too, if you don't want to share all of the information with the vendors, you do have the option of toggling that on and off. So if I toggle that, then now I've hidden this goals and objectives from the vendor. So you've got some capabilities around vendor visibility. The must-have requirements and vendor engagement and all the solution information, this is really going to come into play the further along in the project you get. So once you've started to, you're done adding requirements, if you're inviting stakeholders in to rank what's important to them or anything is marked as a must-have, those are going to start to show up in this area. And this is to give those that you want this like executive level summary to go to. They can quickly see, here are the must-have requirements that our team has determined. And then as the vendors get engaged, this is sort of like their progress chart. Any organization around if you guys have disqualified anybody or shortlisted. So these are really like summary tabs that will fill in this information as you get further along. And then finally at the bottom, should you choose to allow questions from vendors, those will always populate here. You can also answer them from here. Questions are anonymous, but all of the vendors will be able to see that a question has been asked and that you have answered it. So just for what that is worth too, we'll get into some of the project settings too, where I can go a little bit into vendor questions and visibility, but high level.
So Casey, the information on this page, unless they toggle these things up top, each vendor that they invite into the RFP process will see it. Is that true for the stuff further down?
No.
I know you said they'll see the questions, but they won't see engagement status or solution counts.
No, they won't see any of this stuff.
Okay.
The questions, they'll see that a question has been asked and your answer to it, but they don't see what other vendors are in the project. They don't see who's been disqualified, who's been shortlisted, etc. So these are not viewable to them at all.
Okay, one last question on this page. Up top on the right-hand side, it says status.
Yep. This is a status for like you as a team. So you've got the option as you're creating projects, this is like your project status. So if it's active, and Sean, this is more on your guys' end, where if you have projects that are completed or you have projects that are active or ones maybe that started that are now on hold or paused for a little bit, this allows you to organize all projects.
I see.
Okay. Across your instance.
Okay. And what's the purple hat?
Yes, the purple hat, this will be accessible from anywhere within the platform. I am clicking on it and it's not popping open for me. But the purple hat is actually Olive's Knowledge Center. So FAQs, training videos, links to our like monthly training sessions are in here, blog posts, white papers, etc. This is going to be like your go-to help center. And then one other thing I wanted to point out too is that we do have in-app chat available as well. So if you are in here and you get stuck, you've got the option of chatting with me.
Great. All right, thanks.
In real time, yeah. Okay, moving on. So knowing, Sean, that you would have cloned an instance like with requirements, and I'm just going to jump to this requirements page. This is where those criteria or project requirements are going to be. Everything can be laid out in a section. You can also move sections. So if I want to, put loyalty member management ahead of data science, I can. You can delete entire sections if you want. But this is really where, project admins and project stakeholders are going to do a lot of that upfront work of, making sure that these requirements are, needed, by the company. You can always add requirements too, if you want to. So you've got the option of, adding something down here, adding a subsection as well, or even deleting.
Okay, so and just to add clarity to the members listening, these questions are in here already because we cloned an RFP that we had previously built, and we've got about 8 of them pre-built. But if you have an RFP need for a category we don't have built, we can talk about how we go about building that for you. If you have it already built out in an Excel or something, we can get those questions uploaded. If you don't have anything, we can help you gather questions from a variety of sources, but this is one that was already built out and that you're able to take advantage of.
Yeah, so if you, as you're going through and looking through the requirements and reviewing them, you can click on any one for this pop-out box to slide out. You'll see what the requirement is at the top, this section that it is in. And then if you want to add any tags, so I consider tags to be a different way to organize or filter requirements. So maybe you have something around, you have different requirements in different sections, but they all relate to user experience or integrations or IT security. You've got a further way that you can, filter just to look at those, and that'll come into play as you're comparing vendors. If you want to start to slice and dice the data a little bit differently, you can add as many tags as needed. You just, start typing one in, and I'll delete this for you, Sean. Start deleting that in. Oops. And now I've added it, and I hit return, and I can move on to the next one that I may want to add.
Okay.
Additionally, if you want to expand or add any descriptive text around the requirements, you've got the option to do so here in the description box. And as project admins or stakeholders are in here looking at all of this stuff, you can start to rank how important the criteria is to you. So based on a 3-star rating, I would say 3 stars this is a must-have. 2 stars is a nice to have, and a 1 star is a okay to have. As more stakeholders and project collaborators are ranking, this average ranking will start to show up based on the average of everybody who has scored the requirements. You'll start to see the 1, 2, or 3 stars filled out for that.
Okay, and you'll show us how other people can rank them.
Yep.
Okay.
Also within each requirement, you can have a chat between you and stakeholders, or between you and other project collaborators. So if people are working in different offices, everyone's working from home, if you're maybe not meeting to go through these all at one time, which isn't really needed, because you do have this capabilities, you can say, you can ask questions. You can, someone's like, I don't know why this is important. Can you please explain why we want to add this? We don't need this as part of the project. All of that collaboration can happen within this chat feature. As more people start to rank things, so you can see that the project stakeholders in here right now are myself and Sean. Neither of us have ranked anything, but if we were to go in and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to do this as a 3-star, Sean has, done his, you can see all of the people who are within the project and what their rankings have been. And then lastly, the settings tab. This is the response type that you want to set for this requirement for the vendor. So do you want your vendors to answer yes, no? Do you want them to do an open text response? Do you want a default answer, which is going to be core, configurable, third party, NA, or no? So is this, core right out of the box? You can use it. Is there some configuration that needs to happen? Does it require an integration with third party? It's not applicable to their solution, or no, they just don't do it. So you can set these answer types for each requirement based on what you guys are looking, to get the vendor to respond from.
And if they choose yes, no here as an option, is the vendor able to add any color to the yes, no?
Yes. So on their side, when they're in the opportunity reviewing your requirements, they always have the option of answering it and then providing additional text. And we actually just added this new custom response type, which I can show you within the project settings. But if you wanted something different than, core configurable, or I've actually seen if your requirement is written in such a way that a no answer is actually a positive and a yes answer is a negative, you can create that custom response and assign a higher score or value to that no rather than the yes. For instance, if you have a requirement that says, your company has not had an IT security incident in the last 4 years. the positive is a no answer. Our default yes, no, the yes is a positive and the no is obviously a negative. So you've got some play now of, assigning correct values to responses, and vendors always have the option to add more descriptive text.
Perfect. Okay.
So I touched on that executive summary page with must-haves and requirements being marked as a must-have. That is going to be this check mark right here. So you can look at must-haves as something that is going to be maybe like a non-negotiable, or if this vendor doesn't have this capability, we're not going to be able to like move ahead. So you can mark those as must-haves. Maybe it's something around integrations with current systems. Maybe it is something around security or, user experience. You've got that option of marking things as a must-have. And visually, you'll see that when somebody has marked something as a must-have, it will have gone from this orange color to this red color.
Oh, okay.
So all project collaborators will be able to see that.
Okay. And what's under the 3 dots on the right?
Yes, that
Oh.
will just expand it. So you can click into it that way, or you can click into it from the 3 dots. If you want to see when you've invited some other stakeholders in to, rank requirements, this modify columns will allow you to, look at, maybe you want to add tags if you have tags on here so you can visually see them real quick,
Okay.
or who authored it. So if, you have somebody maybe that did add another requirement and you want to see, who that was, you've got that, or maybe who updated it. But as you invite stakeholders in, because it's just me and you in here, Sean, you will only show up. But if your coworker or anybody else was in here, I'd be able to click the box and see visually everybody who has ranked requirements.
Got it. And that's a good point. A good time to point out that if I clone an RFP for a member and they want to delete a question, am I right to say they just check the box and then click the trash can? And if they want to add a question or requirement, like you just said, they just click the plus sign under each category wherever they want it to live.
Correct.
And then it will live there. Okay.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, these the checkboxes open these bulk action buttons up at the top. So if you are wanting to assign tags or you want to set multiple questions as the same answer type, instead of going one by one, you can do this with the checkboxes, either, clicking the ones that are needed, or if you want to click an entire section, you can move them around between sections. You can bulk assign a tag. If you want certain people to rank requirements, you can, if not everybody needs to rank everything. If you want to change the requirement type, so that is the answer type from the vendor. Oops. Or if you want to mark all of these as a must-have, you've got that option too. Or if you want to bulk delete, you can do that as well.
Excellent. Very efficient. Okay.
If any new sections need to be added, it's just done by add new section, type it in, hit return, and it'll pop to the bottom, and you can reassign or move things around like I showed earlier.
Okay.
Some of the buttons at the top, if you have ones, maybe that you've added or that you are ranking that you've assigned to yourself, each stakeholder will have this unique view when they have logged in. So when they click show my requirements, they see their requirements. You can also see show must-haves, or as edits and new things are being added, if comments are made, little like notification buttons will show up on here. And if you have like unread notifications, you can see this show unread only. Okay, that's it for the requirements page. I can go into surveys next if that works. Okay.
Well, I think the natural next question would be, okay, so I get all that, and I want to invite some of my internal coworkers to collaborate on the RFP or get their feedback on, how do I add them? And then how do I communicate with them?
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to skip surveys then. So we'll go into this users tab. This users tab is going to be the area that you're going to be able to see who all the collaborators are within the project. So right now it's myself and you. If I want to add another user, I can click on add user, and I have a couple of different ways that a stakeholder can be added. I can copy and paste this link and send it out via like my own email to those people. And then they'll click on the link, they'll create a profile. As soon as they log in, they'll be able to see the project, and get started. As members are doing more projects, anybody that's been added to one of their previous projects is going to start to show up in this colleagues list. So they would be able to quickly add them from this colleagues list. Or my preferred way of adding it is sending the invite right from the platform. So if I wanted to invite my coworker, Dan, I'll type in his email address. And then I would assign his project role, so stakeholder or admin. And then I would hit the plus sign. So you can add as many emails as needed, as many role types as needed. And then when you're ready to send it out, you're going to click this little arrow up at the top, and that's going to shoot him an email inviting him in to create his profile, log in, and access the project. The reason I like sending it this way is, and I'm not going to send this because I don't want to invite Dan in for real, is as soon as I do send this out, though, I'm going to get a card file listed within this users page of all of the people that I've invited and whether or not they have created their profile and logged in yet. So if I invite Dan and then I invite my other coworker, Chris, and I see Dan is logged in, is active in the project and Chris isn't, I can go follow up with Chris and be like, I sent you this link, please get started within the project. So it gives you a little bit of insight into where people are. Same thing with notifications, like you were asking how we could communicate. You've got the option of that chat feature within, the requirements if you want to collaborate back and forth. You can also use this little action icon at the top and do this broadcast message. If you do a broadcast message, you can send messages to your stakeholders or to your vendors once you've invited them in. But a stakeholder message could be, hey, I've noticed not everybody has ranked requirements, please come in. Or, hey, vendors have started to answer our requirements, please come in and look at their answers and start scoring their answers. So it gives you some different ways to communicate within the app. Messages to vendors could be, hey, deadline to respond is this Friday. If you've not responded, then we're going to DQ you from the project, things like that.
Okay. And sorry, and but do I go over to surveys next?
Yeah, so we can hop over to surveys. So the way that I see projects, going stepwise from start to finish is you have your project admin, the one who is initiating the project. Maybe they want to come in and review the requirements that you have, cloned for them into this tool. And then we want to go in and invite those others that are going to be collaborating within this project. From there, you'll want your stakeholders to rank requirements, maybe add some comments. If you do want them to add additional ones or, talk about ones, you can. The use of surveys, I've seen them used a couple of different ways. So surveys can be used maybe first for initial discovery. So if your project admin isn't ready to invite stakeholders in, but they want to gather some more intel before that, you can create a survey, maybe asking some questions of what's your biggest pain point? What would you like to see in an ideal situation with, when this project is done? How much time do you spend on X per week? And use that information maybe to round out the project and then invite stakeholders in. I've also seen them used, I'm just going to create this test one right here so we can go into it. I've seen them also used as you've got your stakeholders that you are working with within the project, but you also want to get some insight maybe from other teammates, other people around the company that you would like their opinion, but you don't necessarily need their work. You can create a survey maybe to rank some requirements, maybe to ask their pain, because your survey respondents are not your stakeholders per se. You're using surveys to gather feedback outside of the stakeholders who are working within the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like to use the surveys. Well, I usually call the surveys like a create your own adventure, because it's really a drag and drop survey builder. So you have, different formatting options, you have different survey question types, and then you have some organizational ones like with dividers. But, the use of the creation of a good survey really is going to be what the survey is, explain or instructions on why or how they should be filling it out, and then go into the questions. So if I say this is a loyalty rewards discovery survey. Oops. I'm going to type it in and I'm going to hit the save button. You have to hit the save button before moving on to the next question or project or question type. So if I want to do a short description of, please answer the following questions to the best of your ability, etc. Then I want to do check button. I don't know. Please check all that apply. Option 1, option 2, etc. Hit save and move on. You can do a divider. So if I want to make it look really pretty, I could put a divider in here. And you're going to, build your survey based on how you want to use it. You can actually have requirements within the survey as well. So if I want to drag over requirements and I want to have everybody answer the requirements, I can, use this bulk one, or I could cherry pick the ones that I want people to rank, move them over, say, please rank the following, hit save. And now I have the 3 requirements that I want my survey respondents to rank.
And
oh, go ahead.
If they, excuse me, if they rank through the survey here, does
Mhm.
it automatically show up in the RFP questionnaire, or how does that work?
It will. So where I showed you how you could add those different users and what their rankings were, those people who have responded to the survey, and I'll show you like how they're gonna, what the survey looks like. It does capture their first name, last name, and email address. So while they're not a project stakeholder, you are able to add them to that requirements ranking view so you can see side by side. It is actually a good comparison of if you have your stakeholders and you have maybe end users or those other people who aren't collaborating, and maybe what's important to the stakeholders is different than your survey respondents, that maybe some more collaboration or talking
Yeah,
to happen.
it's a good way to get internal alignment so that there isn't a lot of work done before you realize that there's not. Okay.
So once you're done building out the survey, this is where you can invite people to answer it. So I've, created all my questions. I'm going to click on this invite button in the middle. This page that you land on is going to show you initially, what the overview is, like why you're having people filled out. And then if you have chosen the way that you are inviting them to answer it, if you are sending invites out from the platform, you can see how many people you've invited versus how many have completed, and also those people that you've sent it out to. So I'll click on invite respondents, and it's the same 3 ways that you are sending project stakeholder invites to is how you can send the survey to. So copy paste the link, send it via email. If your colleagues are already in here, you can add them that way or add email addresses and send it out from the platform. And this is what the survey would look like. So this is their landing page. This is the only page that they see. They don't have any other view into your project. So it's capturing, first name, last name, title, and email. And then we're getting into the actual questions. So, check all that apply, please rank the following, and then they hit the submit button.
Very cool. Okay.
Once you have started to invite people and they've, filled it out, this analyze tab is going to show you all of the questions and answers that those respondents have filled out in a more visual view. And if anybody, wants to download survey responses, they've got the ability to via this actions button. It'll download to an Excel file. So I see, to touch on that, like the use of the surveys, I've seen it for gathering initial project discovery, maybe getting some requirements ranking or alignment on requirements and, actual pain points and things like that. And then, post vendor selection and into maybe implementation and beyond. I have seen some customers create a third survey that goes back and maybe re-asks some of those discovery questions of, you said this was your pain point in the beginning. Now that we've implemented vendor X, has this pain been solved? How much time are you now spending on this task, etc.? Basically to, go back and show the ROI and success of the project. And I've seen some questions be answered around like vendor sales process and vendor implementation. If vendors are looking for some feedback too, this could be a good use of the tool post implementation to gather some of that as well.
Okay, so at this point, we've got the questions built, we've got input from all my stakeholders internally, and we are now ready to invite vendors in. Is that right?
Yeah, you are.
Right.
So we've gone through requirements. The next 2 tabs are going to be the ones that are going to be around vendor specifics and sort of like the comparisons. When you're ready to invite vendors in, you're going to use this solutions tab. This gives you a visual of all of the vendors that you would like to look at and invite into your project and answer all your requirements. So right now we haven't included anybody, but if I want to start including those that we want to look at, I'm going to click on add solution. And I'm going to start typing in a solution name. Sean, do you have one you would like me to add?
Sure, Zinrello.
Okay, so as I start typing, if they've been in a previous project, maybe not yours, but just a previous project within Olive, it starts to populate in this vendor library. So I can quickly add them. I just click the plus sign, and now I've added them into the project. And I can go through, actually, I've checked them. If there is a logo to upload or a description text, I've got that. I can add that, and then I'll click add solution. And now I've just added them as a vendor that I want to look at. Do you have another?
And just to be clear, the reason they would add the logo and the description is just to make it more professional looking, so that when they invite the vendor in, they have their own sort of custom page, and it just is cleaner.
It is cleaner. And as we get into the comparison tab, I'll show you why adding that logo is, I'll say, a really good idea.
Okay.
Not mandatory, but a really good idea. Do you have another one that you would like to add?
You can put in Yotpo.
How do
YOT.
IoT?
YOT.
Oh, OTPO.
Yep,
This one? Okay.
yep.
Checked them and now I've added them. Okay. So let's say we're just going to look at these two. When you add a solution, it's going to go into this included column first. The moving of vendors is like I want to say like an organizational function that you have for this page. This is a way that I keep track of like my projects and vendors within my projects. So just because I've added them as a solution in here doesn't mean that an email went out to a contact at Zinrello and has invited them in. When I want to invite the solution in, and I just clicked on the name and the details page popped out. These are like overview details, the evaluation status. So right now we haven't done anything. So their status is open. This gives just the high level overview of that vendor, but I want to open that solutions like profile. This is the page that you'll land on when you are starting to look at that vendor. This overview, the solution details, and any of these notes and attachments, these are all going to be things that the vendor can do and can update when they have logged in to the opportunity. So this isn't the customer's responsibility to update this information. This will be the vendor's. When you do want to invite the vendor in, I opened up their profile and I click this action button and get invite link. And I'm going to copy and paste this link and I'm going to send it via my personal work email. You cannot invite vendors from the platform for a couple of reasons. Number one, vendor contacts tend to change based on geography, prospect size, industry, etc. And we're not like tied in with every vendor in the world, and those sales teams tend to change frequently. And we do find better response and better engagement with the vendors coming in to answer when it's been sent out via the company that is reviewing or managing the project. There is sample language of, hey, what do I tell a vendor when I'm inviting them into this project? There is sample language within that knowledge center if anybody is looking for what do I say. So you would, you'll send it out via email. They create their own vendor profile. They're prompted to complete this information. And then they're also prompted in-app to start answering your requirements. Vendors are supported the same way that our customers are. So if they have questions, they get stuck, they're having any issues, they do have this in-app chat button as well. They do have their own section within the Knowledge Center. We don't expect you, Sean, or your members to act as a support team for them. If they do reach out, you guys can feel free to send them my way too.
Okay, great.
So back to how I organize this, I've included all of my vendors that I want to reach out to. I have emailed Zinrello and said, hey, I have this project that I want you to review. I'm going to move you to the contact stage just so I know who I've reached out to and who I haven't. As soon as they start filling out and answering your requirements, they'll automatically go into this in progress stage. As soon as they are done and they, hit submit answers, they'll go into this completed stage. You get notified, when somebody has submitted their answers, but you've also got the option to, you can see their responses as well. So even if they're not done or they're going through it or, they've said, hey, we've answered some of these, go take a look. I can come into this responses tab of Zinrello's profile and I can see here when they start to answer what that answer is. And when I click on it, I open it up. And like you asked before, if they've got the option to expand upon their answer. So if it was a yes, no question, I'll see yes or no right here. And then any additional details that they've, put in right here, I'll also see as well. If you do want to have some back and forth discussions with the vendors, you've got that ability here. So if the vendor says, hey, I need a little bit more explanation, or one of the stakeholders says, I don't understand this answer, can you please provide additional detail? Both sides are notified that somebody has, put in a question, there's some chat around it. Project admins can make comments or questions viewable to the vendors. Project stakeholders cannot, for what it's worth.
Okay.
And then as our stakeholders or admins are reviewing vendor answers, I can see what scores they've assigned to it. So to score an answer, I'm not going to do this one. I would click on the bar and it's a 1 to 10 scale. 10 obviously being like 100%, on down to a 0.
So Casey, are they only scoring questions that are open text, or do they score all answers?
All answers.
Got it. So somebody at the company that's performing the RFP has to go into every single question or every single answer and give it a score.
Yes.
And then that will allow the system to do its calculations in general.
Yeah. So the system will still do calculations based on how you have ranked criteria and how the vendor has answered it. But a better calculation or a better compatibility score is calculated when all 3 of those things have happened: rankings, vendor answers, and scored vendor answers.
Okay.
If there are questions or somebody has hey, I would really like to see this during the demo because I'm not fully certain yet. This raised hand icon is, this I want a demo button. This keeps a running list within like that vendor profile of all of the things that you guys or that your members want to see during that demo. So demos tend to be a little bit more tailored to the company's needs rather than what the vendor wants to show you, based on, you've got your list of things that you want to see, and the vendor can also see, here's the stuff that this prospect would like to see during the demo. So it's definitely more tailored.
Okay. So when they click that, I want a demo button, the vendor will see that as well.
Yes, the vendor sees that in their view. So we've talked about like the vendor scoring and why that's important. That really comes into play on this comparison page. So we have added Yotpo and Zinrello as vendors, and you'll see Zinrello has a logo in here. So visually I can kind of tell the difference between the two. Yotpo doesn't have one, just for, clean visual effect on here. That's why we suggest adding that logo. But this is where these percentages start to come into play. So these are all of the sections from the requirements tab. And if I pop one open, these are all of the requirements that project stakeholders have ranked. Now, if we had vendors who have answered within here, I would be able to see a side-by-side comparison of their answers to the project criteria. This percentage match is that calculation of how have my stakeholders ranked criteria, how has the vendor answered it, and how have I scored that answer? And that's where these percentages come into play. So if you really like a vendor's answer, maybe this percentage match is going to be a lot higher than Zinrello. That must-have button, maybe that was checked for some requirements. If I click that and we only checked one, I'd be able to see all of our must-haves, the things that we've said are absolutely important to this, vendor moving forward. I always suggest looking at this as well, in addition to just all of the requirements, because you may have a vendor that overall looks really good. Maybe it's like a 90% match, but when you look on just the must-haves, maybe that they've missed the mark a little bit, and it's actually another vendor may not do over well, but really hits those must-haves for the company.
Got it. Okay. So now we're at the point where the RFP is filled out. The customer here or our member has gone through and ranked all the questions. And then they'll see a score at the top that sort of ranks each vendor against each other based on the criteria set out. And so now at this point, it's up to the person running the RFP to decide which of the vendors, based on their score, that they want to have a follow-up meeting with.
Correct. Yep. That's where, yeah, these percentage matches at the top, your list of must-haves, et cetera, is going to give that detail of what vendors maybe you want to move on to, the demos, what ones you want to disqualify, or ultimately which ones you want to choose. And that is this overview page 2. For organizational sake, I really like these features because I can say, okay, I want to shortlist this one.
Huh.
And I'll say they're completed. And
Okay.
save it. You can also disqualify as well. So if some vendor's not working out well, I've got this visual right here that maybe they're answered, but we've dequeued them for some reason. And gives you a little bit more insight and visual into where each vendor is at within the process.
All right. Excellent. Is that a good place to wrap?
Sure. Yeah.